This is the podcast helping to create, provide, and expand
winners in life.
Positively life-changing experiences through music for all.
Go for it!
This is the podcast that encourages everyone to
break ranks.
This week on Break Ranks,
we have to decide where we're going really early.
The challenge of taking a band of hundreds on the road.
Oh, it can be tough depending on where you're going.
And reasons why you should.
The reason we do it at Dobyns-Bennett High School is to teach kids in a small town that they are capable of benchmarking their efforts against kids from anywhere in America.
A conversation with one of the most respected band directors in the country.
Maybe there's things that happen I don't know about. There probably are for all band directors.
Dobyns-Bennett director Lafe Cook joins us. How do you deal with discipline on the road?
Wonderfully, we travel with an assistant or one of our head principals.
We're diving into the pluses and pitfalls of taking a band on the road. This time on Break Ranks. Week 7 of the Bands of America Marching Band Championships brought us 2 regionals and 1 super regional. We began in Piscataway, New Jersey at SHI Stadium on the campus of Rutgers University, and the very first regional championship for a band out of North Carolina.
And in first place, with a score of 83.75, the 2024 Bands of America New Jersey Regional Champion, the Cleveland High School Marching Band from Clayton, North Carolina.
That's BOA announcer Nick Costello with the good news for Cleveland High School, sweeping all captions and squeaking by Virginia's Hickory High School by just 0.8 of a point. New Jersey's Stevens High School took third in Piscataway. Those 3 schools are all in different classes, and all 3 brought home gold class champion medallions in prelims. John P. Stevens won 4A, Cleveland took 3A, and Hickory goes home with the Class 2A honors. New Jersey's Metuchen High School was tops in 1A. Meanwhile, down the coast in Orlando.
In first place, with a score of 90.4, the 2024 Bands of America Orlando Regional Champion, the Tarpon Springs High School Marching Band from Tarpon Springs, Florida.
Alex Quintero was on the mic at Camping World Stadium as Tarpon Springs finished 3.5 points ahead of the rest of the finalists and swept all 3 captions to claim the Regional Champions Trophy in Orlando. California's Vista Murrieta was second, and Stoneman Douglas High School of Florida was third. Vista Murrieta isn't going all the way back to California empty-handed. They were the Class 4A champions in prelims. Georgia's Harrison High School won 3A. Tarpon Springs continued its vice grip on the 2A medallions in Orlando, and the band from P.K. Youngie Developmental Research School in Florida was tops in 1A. Now to the second BOA Super Regional of the year at the Dome at America's Center in St. Louis.
And in first place, with a score of 92.325, the 2024 Bands of America St. Louis Super Regional Champion, the Blue Springs High School Marching Band from Blue Springs, Missouri.
And a stunning win for the Golden Regiment of Missouri's Blue Springs High School over 4-time BOA Grand Nationals champ Broken Arrow High School of Oklahoma. Only 15 100ths of a point separated the two, and both have shows that are feasts for the eyes and ears. But in the end, Blue Springs took high honors in visual and general effect, and that was enough to overcome Broken Arrow's strong win in the music caption. Arkansas's Bentonville High School was third in finals at St. Louis. In prelims, both BA and Blue Springs won their respective class championships, Broken Arrow in 4A, Blue Springs in 3A. Morton High School of Illinois took the 2A medallions, and Chicago's Marian Catholic High School was tops in 1A. This time on Break Ranks, it may not be the brightest, shiniest, most attractive part of our activity, but it is one of the most necessary things we do. We're going to talk logistics. Logistics of moving hundreds of performers and their chaperones and their equipment and their instruments across the country sometimes. It's kind of time to pull back the curtain and look at the nitty-gritty of what it takes to get a Bands of America band on the road and to a show. And I can't think of anybody better to do this than one of the most experienced band directors I know. Lafe Cook is the band director at Dobyns-Bennett High School in Tennessee. He's been there for over a quarter century. He's been a band director for more than 3 decades. He is a member of the American Bandmasters Association, which is about as exclusive as it gets when it comes to being a band director in this country in terms of recognition. Lafe Cook, welcome to Break Ranks.
Thanks, Dan. I don't really appreciate the metrics you used to describe my longevity, so that made me seem really old, but thank you.
Okay, well, I'll just say I've been involved in this activity for going on 45 years. So if you're going to feel old, I'm going to feel ancient.
That's fair. That's fair.
The Dobyns-Bennett Band, speaking of ancient, Dobyns-Bennett's been around as a band for, since 1926?
That's right. We actually are ramping up to make a big deal of our centennial in the 26-27 school year. Our centennial, it's not a small city, but we're a one high school community with lots of the support that's always attached to that kind of thing. And so we're excited to celebrate that centennial in a couple of years, which will also be my 30th year as the band director here. So
that community being Kingsport, Tennessee. Describe Kingsport. What's it like?
Kingsport is unique. It's 50,000 residents roughly. It's not a suburb of anywhere, but it's got a global Fortune 500 company that's the linchpin of our economy, Eastman Chemical Company. George Eastman, the same George Eastman that started the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, the early 20th century magnate. He wanted to start an early chemical company when that industry was just beginning in some place that had trees to burn and a river to generate electricity. And Kingsport was the place he chose. And so our whole economy really has historically been centered around a single company, Eastman Chemical Company.
Okay. And you say the community is extremely supportive of the band.
Oh, unbelievably so. George Eastman, because of, his interest in music. We were one of the first cities in America that had a dedicated music teacher at every school. This is in 1917 or something, at all of our elementary schools, middle schools, and high school. One of the first cities in the country that had that.
Now you have well over 300 members, I believe, in the band. You've been in Grand National Finals. Tell me if I'm wrong. 3 times? Is that right?
5 times. Yeah.
5 times. Wow.
Yeah.
So you're obviously a successful program and very well seasoned when it comes to travel. So let's just go through the process. You've decided you're going to go to a Bands of America regional. You're in Tennessee. Let's say you're going to go, just pick one. Let's say you're going to the Indianapolis Super Regional. And just for sake of argument, how do you start preparing for that? What's your first call and what are you most concerned about?
Some of that honestly has to do with where you live, where your school is. Some places have, for us, being from a small place, there are not a plethora of coach companies for us to choose from. So we have to decide where we're going really early in order to secure the number of buses we need to transport the number of people we're trying to transport, knowing that in the fall, the limited number of coach companies in our region are looking at the stable contracts that they get from college football, or on the weekend, a lot of the coach companies in our area are moving troops that are,
Guardsmen or reservists.
Yeah. So we have to decide insanely early where we're going in order to even get the coaches we need to transport our folks. So for us, at least where we live, it's transportation before housing.
How many buses does that take for your band?
6 buses for us.
And trucks?
Well, we have 2 where we laugh. We have 2 semis now. We joke. We got our second semi this year and we're a 2 semi truck band now. We like to laugh about that. Like that means anything at all regarding quality. It doesn't. It just means we have lots of stuff. But we have 2 semi trucks. That's another thing that you have to consider how you're going to find tractors. We only own the trailer. And so you have to find the tractors and the drivers to pull that stuff. And that's a whole nother layer of connectivity with partners in your community and potential parents or grandparents who have CDLs and all those things,
At what point when you're calculating these things, do you say, okay, this is over X number of miles, we better try to charter a plane and fly?
So there's not a BOA regional that Dobyns-Bennett is going to go to that will require a chartered plane. We have chartered a plane twice to go to the Rose Parade. And that was economical at the time we did it. I don't think that's economical now. That's what the tour people tell me, that is priced out above what it would take just to do it in commercial flights, But man, it was awesome. Chartering a plane to Pasadena for the Rose Parade was pretty great.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, so you've secured transportation to this fictitious super regional we're talking about. What's next on the list?
Well, then you have to decide whether you're going to use a travel company or you're just going to go it on your own. For things like a regional trip, we go it on our own. We have an active booster organization like most bands our size would have. And those folks are, on the hook and willing to do the work on the phone to get the reservations for the number of rooms we need. Our demographic is diverse economically. And so we try and keep the costs down in the places we can. And so we try and do what we would call a small trip compared to like a Rose Parade or a Macy's Parade. We would call a trip to a super regional or a regional a small trip. Our parents do the legwork on soliciting the rooms for the hotels. And so that's the next step, is getting reservations for rooms, obviously.
How tough is that?
Oh, it can be tough depending on where you're going. Not a regional, but some years we'll go to the Contest of Champions in Middle Tennessee at MTSU. It's one of the oldest continual band contests in America. And Murfreesboro, Tennessee doesn't have a single hotel that can hold our band. And certainly when you're going someplace where there's a concentration of other bands who are trying to stay the night, you're battling on timelines. Who called first to get the available rooms in whatever community you're going to? So we have, in the years we've gone to Contest of Champions and several other places, there are times where we'll be in 4 different hotels.
Wow.
Well, 4 different hotels means that the buses are in 4 different places, which means the kids have to sign up for buses based on their roommates. And sometimes the math doesn't work out on a 56-person bus to equal the number of room beds we have at Hotel X. And so it gets complicated, obviously.
What's the ratio of chaperones to students?
We shoot for 10-1 on a long trip. Sometimes it's probably closer to 20-1 on a trip where there's not a lot of free time, like going to a band contest. The kids aren't, walking the streets of Indianapolis, going to restaurants, all that, like they do when we go to Grand Nationals. And so on something like that, we might do a 15 or 20-1. But if we were going to some faraway place in a big city where the kids are going to be there multiple nights with hours of free time, we try and do 10-1.
Are you one of those bands? And I know this from having stayed in many hotels where there's been a band housed there, or more than one band. You walk the hallway at night and there's a piece of tape across the door. Are you one of those that do that to keep the kids, make sure they stay in their room?
We are not. We are absolutely not one of those bands. I don't know if maybe we should be. Maybe there's things that happen I don't know about. There probably are for all band directors. But what we do is we hire security. Sometimes that's off-duty police in whatever community we're in. But we usually have security folks who will be in the hallways of said hotel. But that's not, that is for the safety of the students as much as it is to keep them in their rooms.
Sure.
If kids want to get in trouble, they're going to find a way. And a piece of tape isn't going to be the deal breaker on that.
It's a very good point. How do you deal with discipline on the road?
Wonderfully, we travel with an assistant or one of our head principals.
Oh.
And those folks know, that's great, because they know that the band director is exhausted, nervous, all the emotions that come with competing or traveling or being on national television on a thing, whatever. And so we always have, at least at our school, principals who are eager to come with us and take that burden, the burden of on the spot, in the moment discipline off of us. And it's so great.
Oh.
Our superintendent now was formerly the principal of our high school. He's been to more important band stuff than most band directors have been to. It's so great. And he'll be at Grand Nationals again as our superintendent, even though he's been as our principal and as a chaperone. It's wonderful.
That is wonderful. Okay, so you've got all these students taken to the contest. You got them housed. One thing I know about teenagers, they're hungry all the time. How do you feed 350 kids and staff when you're on the road? What decisions have to be made there?
So we have committees in our booster organization. It sounds so silly, but when you have this many kids going this many places, we have a water committee. It is, and I hate it as a conservation-minded person, both of my grandfathers, my sister, and my dad are all National Park Service rangers. But we use more single-use plastic water bottles than is responsible. But we have a whole committee of folks who think about how often the kids will need to be hydrated. So we're traveling with so much water and buying water when we get to places. We have a snack committee that has both light and heavy snacks arranged for on the charter buses when we travel long distances. And then we have a third committee that deals with food on location, where we cater in for kids. And so that's mostly how we do it. when we go to Grand Nationals, the kids eat on their own quite a bit because we allow them to go in their groups around Indy to support the local economy. They eat at restaurants, but a lot of places we go, we bring the food to the kids. And so we have a committee of folks who will reach out to local vendors in the places we're going, whether that's pizzas delivered to the lobby of a hotel late at night or, barbecue in the grass field at a contest in between prelims and finals. It's a process you have to think through, and you have to find local vendors in the locale you're going to.
Yeah, and you have to find out, like, if you're going to feed them at a stadium, if a stadium even allows that. Sometimes stadiums have rules against that.
For sure. Actually, probably more often than not, they have rules against that.
Yeah.
But some of those same stadiums will offer prepackaged food that you can provide your kids through the stadium concessions.
The whole point of planning, I guess, is to make your time on the road as stress-free and enjoyable and as performance-focused as possible. What are the keys to, making it a stress-free trip for the kids and for your staff and you?
Oh, wow. I've never had a stress-free trip. That's interesting to consider.
What is that anyway?
For me personally, I don't know. The band parents aren't doing a good enough job for my stress levels. I mean, I think what is stress-free for kids has nothing to do with logistics. I think what is stress-free for kids is making sure you've musically prepared them to perform at their highest level. And the kids go with the flow at such a high level. And you know this, like, they're fine. They're with their friends. They're doing what they love. And so I don't know if I've ever considered the premise of your question, the way you presented it.
Yeah.
But obviously being organized, like, you have to have a itinerary that you've thought through enough to where you don't deviate from it a ton. My assistant band director, longtime assistant band director, Ryan Gilbert, on his computer, we have a thing called the log. And the log gets everything. He just enters random stuff in the log. Interestingly, we looked at the log this morning. The distance from Kingsport to Indianapolis would indicate that that's a 6-hour drive. And the log that we've built over the years of going to Grand Nationals says unequivocally that a trip to Indy is 9 hours long. And that's just bus breakdowns and trying to track down a kid at the mall because they're not there and, whatever. And so keeping a record of things to remember maybe helps too.
I want to end on this. You could go just to local contests around Tennessee, maybe make Middle Tennessee State your longest trip. Why go to all the trouble of moving your size band halfway or more across the country to travel, to do this? What is the benefit for the students, this kind of trip?
Well, I think about that a lot because it's expensive. And the one thing you haven't asked me about is dollar amounts. And I'm glad because I don't want to say those dollar amounts out loud. But the reason we do it at Dobyns-Bennett High School is to teach kids in a small town that they are capable of benchmarking their efforts against kids from anywhere in America. And the only place we are able to show our kids the highest caliber of student performance is in BOA events. And so that is why we went down this road years ago. And that's why we still go down it, is to show kids in our small community that their efforts and work ethic can be equivalent to the efforts and work ethic of kids from the most affluent suburban suburbs in our country on through, any other community you can describe in our country.
Of course, I got to ask about the cost now. What do you think it comes out to per student these days to go on a trip like that?
I mean, it really depends on how you're doing it, where you're coming from. I will tell you that the bus bill, just the charter bus bill from Kingsport, Tennessee to Indianapolis for Grand Nationals is $44,000. And that's just the buses, nothing else.
How do you fundraise for that? How do you pay for that?
This is where having a one high school community means a lot. We fundraise incredibly successfully because we're not fighting for our slice of the pie like we would if we were in a school district with 14 high schools. And so many of the folks that we're approaching for fundraising are graduates of Dobyns-Bennett. And so we are able to fundraise really successfully. That keeps our band fees quite low for bands like ours who are competing at the level we're trying to compete. So fundraising is the biggest piece of it. We have band fees, of course, but we're super cognizant of the diversity of our economic demographic. And so we never deny any student the opportunity to be part of any of our travel, whether that's the Rose Parade or the Grand Nationals trip or a trip to MTSU for Contest of Champions. And so a certain percentage of what we fundraise is put aside to help kids have access to our experiences who come from economically challenged backgrounds. And that's a huge part of our booster philosophy long-term. Hugest part, frankly.
Dobyns-Bennett always has unique, entertaining shows. So if you're going to Grand Nationals this year, you're going to watch Dobyns-Bennett, what are we going to see?
Well, you're going to see less props than normal, but still props. We have gained a reputation for a band that has props, hence the second semi-trailer, I guess.
That's what I figured, yeah.
Yeah, that's a piece of it. But we love our show this year. We've got an incredible design team who have worked with us for years. And our show is called Menagerie. And there are cages, as a menagerie is a zoo that keeps animals in check. And at some point in our show, the animals, they cut loose, they get free, and mayhem ensues. But it's a show we're really enjoying and looking forward to presenting it at Grand Nationals here in just a few weeks.
Lafe, thanks for all the great advice. I'm sure band directors everywhere appreciate it. And we appreciate you being a guest on Break Ranks.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate being asked to do it.
That's Lafe Cook, band director at Dobyns-Bennett High School in Kingsport, Tennessee. There's only one regional on tap this weekend for Week 8 of the season. It's in Etiwanda, California. But then it's a dash to the San Antonio Super Regional and on to Grand Nationals, which gets underway exactly 2 weeks from today. I'm Dan Potter. I'll talk to you again next week. Until then, go for it. Break ranks.